Well, Senator Bob Corker standing his ground tonight after a reportedly heated call this morning with the president, where they discussed his bill to rein in the chief executive's authority on trade and tariffs. Senator Lindsey Graham issuing a statement in support of the president. Now Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is coming down on the side of the White House.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be trying to rein in the president through legislation. Number one, it'd be an exercise in futility because he wouldn't sign it.
And not surprising, the Democrats are also looking to clip the president's foreign policy wings as well. Joining us now, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and radio host on WMAL in Washington, Larry O'Connor. Larry and Leslie.
Hi, Shannon.
Thank you for joining us. Good to see you tonight. All right, let me play a little bit of what Senator Corker had to say, because there's kind of this conversation on the Hill. Do you go after the president and his moves on trade through legislation, as Corker's trying to do, or have private meetings, which is more what Senator Perdue has been trying to do? Here's what Corker says.
What's happening is unfair to our country, and instead you can just drive a freight train through it. And so because they're utilizing it in this unprecedented way, what we've asked is, hey, you can continue to do all the things you're doing and negotiate, but once you complete the work, you have to submit it to us for approval, because tariffs and revenues are the responsibilities of Congress, not the executive branch.
But Leslie, the president's been making some very bold moves with regard to these tariffs on a number of fronts the last few months.
I don't have a problem with Congress wanting to have their eyes on and approval, thumbs up or down, with what happens not only with tariffs, but even with North Korea. But Corker's legislation and the timing of this, Shannon, is a big problem for me, even as a Democrat. I support having tariffs, and the reason I do is we have had an unprecedented trade deficit for over a decade. He talked tough on China. It was one of the reasons you had blue-collar workers vote for him. And the timing of this is bad because it can really undermine the president's ability and really undermine the leverage that he has going into the G7 summit and even the summit with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And quite frankly, it also lets Russia and China, who really are the big thieves in trade here, if you will, off the hook, and it could send a lot of United Steel workers back to the unemployment line. So I think we need to back the president on this, quite frankly.
Well, there's a lot of discussion about whether there will be those who will join Corker, and there are some publicly doing that. It sounds like it's going to be a tough lift to get this through the Senate, and the president's not going to sign it.
Yeah.
But so there's this discussion in the Washington Post about what Republicans do. It says it's unclear what lawmakers are willing to do besides bark. Challenging Trump comes with its own risks, from alienating his supporters to taking voters' attention off a healthy economy before the midterm elections, which will determine control of the House and Senate. Larry, obviously, Senator Corker's not running again.
No, he's not. And I wish Senator Corker had been this forthright and this aggressive dealing with President Obama on the Iran nuclear deal. Imagine if he had been this vocal and this defiant against that abomination. Instead, he rolled over for him. Listen, I appreciate Leslie and her words. I think she's right. You don't want to listen, I'm not a huge fan of tariffs. I don't want there to be tariffs, but I also recognize that it is a negotiating weapon that the president can use entering into the G7. Let's wait and see what he can accomplish by hanging a tariff threat over their heads. And to suggest that he needs Congress to approve these tariffs. Did you know that in 1971, President Nixon imposed a tariff, 10% across the board, and he cited the Korean War as justification? It had been over for almost 20 years. He has some pretty broad powers here, and he'll be able to do a tariff if he wants. Hope he doesn't, but Corker should sit down and just let these things play out.
Okay, and real quickly, I want to touch on the North Korea summit that's coming up, because Democrats and Republicans alike are saying we hope the president will walk away from things he doesn't think are a good deal. Democrats, a number of the top Senate Democrats, have outlined a letter. They have 5 different goals, and they say this: we believe Congress must act as on a check on any agreement that does not live up to these principles. The 5 goals they have: by imposing tougher sanctions and oversight, Democrats will look to the standards outlined in this letter as we examine whether North Korea should be granted sanctions relief. Very quickly to both of you, the Iran deal never went to a vote before the Senate. They didn't treat it like a treaty, and that's why it's easily undone. Very quickly, Leslie, to you first, and then to you, Larry. Should any North Korea deal be treated like a treaty and go to a Senate vote?
Absolutely. And the reason for that is because this is not and should not be a political matter. This is a country where our branches are set up the way they are, with the executive and the judicial and the legislative branch, to have those checks and balances. Right. And so it's necessary. I think it's constitutional, quite frankly.
Leslie, or Larry, very quick.
Yeah,
yes
it depends on what it ends up being. But if it is as broad and sweeping as they're saying, I agree. It should be a treaty. It would be the best thing for the president, by the way.
Lots of love and agreement between Leslie Leslie and Larry tonight, and marking it on the calendar.
Big kumbaya
Thank
moment.
you both.
Yes.
All right.
Twice in one night.
I know. Thank you, guys.